mom has passed away now almost 2 years ago, and my sister and I primarily were in charge of cleaning out her entire house in just a few months. As I was in the basement of my mom's home, this is what I remember, and it's slightly embarrassing telling you this, but I'm like, you know what, if it's gonna help you, it's worth embarrassing myself. So here we go. My mom had so much wrapping paper. I mean, like hordes and hordes and hordes of wrapping paper. We're talking gift bags, we're talking bows, lots of gift boxes. So I believe what she would do is like save the gift boxes in case she might need them at Christmas time. But there were like 500 of them. And when my sister and I went down to the basement into the storage room and we saw the volume of wrapping paper, we just sort of looked at each other and were like, what is this? And I had sort of this emotion come up, but at the moment I didn't know what it was. We're like, well, what's the fastest way to deal with all of these gift boxes? And you know what I'm talking about. They're like the flimsy kind that you get at the department store, like at Christmas time. They were not folded flat. They were like created. And she and I looked at each other and we were like, we could jump on them. We put all of the boxes on the floor and jumped on them, and we stomped and we jumped and we stomped. And as I was doing this, keep in mind, we were probably a couple months into the process of decluttering her house. I got in touch with my anger. I want to unpack why we feel that anger, if it's okay or not, what's underneath it, and what we can do about it. Hi there, my name is Dawn. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, a homeschooling mom, and a Jesus lover. I live in Minnesota with my darling husband of 16 years, and we have 3 kids between the ages of 10 and 13. If you have cleaned through someone else's messes, it is very normal, super normal, for us to feel resentment, for us to feel really frustrated, angry, because this person could have, or so we believe, done a better job of downsizing so that we don't have to pay for it now with our time and our energy, which probably feels limited. Many of us are in the sandwich generation where we have parents that are aging and we also have younger children. And I certainly feel like I'm in that space where as my mom was aging and not doing well and needed more care, I still had young kids. And so it's very difficult to balance both of those and to be present with both generations. I found myself just really getting in touch with my anger as I was stomping on these boxes. And soon they were all flat. And my sister and I were like, oh, that felt amazing. I got in touch with this emotion of anger, so much frustration that I was having to deal with my mom's messes. And it was really difficult to feel that. I felt sort of a conflict, like, oh, I can't feel this way because here my mom was gone. What a silly thing to be angry at her for all these things that I'm going through. And I felt very unchristian and very unloving. But I want to just talk about it because I feel like I can't possibly be alone. When we feel anger for someone else's actions, it's very likely because we did not have responsibility around that decision. So if it had been up to us, obviously we would have gone through things. We would have been thinking about our kids and not leaving a big mess for them behind. I believe that a lot of that anger is because I didn't create this mess, and yet I have to devote so much time and energy to clearing it out for her. And it just gets to be frustrating, right? And this is what I think it can be very, very helpful for us to look at what is underneath our anger. What you need to know about anger is that it is a secondary emotion. What that means is that it is something that's on the surface of a different emotion. There's always something underneath it. So as we look at our anger chart, we can see that there are many faces that could be underneath this particular anger. And when I think about the ones that stand out for me with regard to decluttering my mom's house, definitely one that comes up a lot for me is hurt. Hurt that she wouldn't have considered me and gone through it herself. Maybe some embarrassment, like how did it get this bad? And what was happening that she thought this was okay? Was she not doing well? Like, why wasn't she able to handle this? You know, who was my mom anyway? Definitely feelings of grief come up. Definitely, if that person has already passed, especially, there's this feeling of grief like, this is all that's left of them and I'm packing it away. There also can be some disappointment, like I really thought that this was going to be different than it is, and so I'm disappointed with how this has played itself out. There could be a lot of anxiety. You know, it's difficult to let go of things when we are holding on to someone that we love. Particular to the situation of, someone who's already passed, I think anxiety can definitely play a role because we want to hold on to everything that we can, not realizing that actually the memories themselves are enough. I think what I have had to do was really begin to have that insight of what is going on underneath my anger. And I began to realize that I held some beliefs that caused me to have those feelings. So I believed that a normal person should definitely be able to take care of this kind of thing on their own. And I was hurt that my mom maybe didn't take the time to do that for us. I had to take that belief to Jesus that, a normal person would go ahead and do this. Then I had to deal with my feelings of grief and also my feelings of guilt for even having this feeling in the first place. So if you have found yourself dealing with anger, the first thing that I want to tell you is that it is very normal. It is normal and it's okay. It's okay to have those emotions. It really is. What's not okay is when we have the emotions, stuff them, and never deal with them, because then they tend to come out sideways and sometimes even manifest in physical illness because we're holding it inside our bodies and we haven't processed it. What I would encourage you to do, and what I believe is healthy, is for us to get in touch with that emotion, really identify what is the feeling underneath the anger, and then let's bring it to Jesus and hear his truth about it. When I brought my belief to Jesus that a normal person would have cleaned this out for their kids, she shouldn't have left this behind for us to deal with. What the Lord impressed upon me was really adjusting my expectations of what a normal person would do. And then he spoke to me ever so gently and reminded me that I too have needed help along the way. So what he showed me in the midst of this was that really my mom, in the state that she was, even for the past decade or so, she had not been really capable. She had a number of things happening physically and even as a person emotionally. Her growth had become somewhat stunted in the last decade or so, and she had begun to isolate herself. And I really believe that there were some depression symptoms and anxiety symptoms going on big time for her. And these things prevented her from doing what a normal person might do, such as clean through their storage room. I realized that I was holding her to a very unrealistic standard, and it also really lacked compassion. The antidote for these kinds of feelings, I have found, is always to begin to find compassion for the other. And the Lord whispered to me ever so gently, have you ever felt like you've needed compassion? And I was like, of course I have. There have been times in my life when I desperately needed help and I could not function at a higher level. And I was holding my mom to the same standard that I hold myself to, thinking that we both have the same level of energy and ability and even emotional health. And that was not fair. If you find yourself holding someone accountable, if you're angry with them, if you find yourself needing to forgive, the best place to start is to begin to slip into their shoes, slip into her skin. I realized this was a woman who was not feeling well almost 100% of the time. She did not maybe have the empowerment or even the skill to decide to take on a project of that magnitude, not to mention mental health-wise and emotional health-wise, she did not have the ability to even get started. It was so overwhelming to her, and rightfully so. It was very overwhelming to us even, but she could never have tackled that project on her own. But to realize and find compassion for the stage that she was at, and then to realize that it wasn't an intentional affront against me. That is the second piece of the compassion, is to realize that person's heart for you most likely is not malicious. So if you have someone that you're cleaning up after or that you feel like works against you in your decluttering journey, to realize that it's not a personal choice for them to hurt you. It's really more of a reflection of where their heart is at. As I began to process that hurt and even some of the grief, I realized that by going through all of these things, it was a way for me to love and honor my mom, and even more so to love and honor Jesus, because this was an act of worship and sacrifice that demanded that kind of dedication. You know, I had to have a why. I had to have a strong sense with my sister of like, why are we doing this? We could have thrown it all in the trash. We certainly could have, but we wanted to have integrity and honor for our mom's life and all of the lives that were reflected in the antiquities and the different items that we had found. And so because we desired to honor lives and honor ancestors and honor family stories, we dug deep. And we found it within ourselves, with the grace of God, ever so much, to move forward out of that place of anger and resentment. If you have any of that lingering or hanging around, once again, whether that person is gone or whether they live in your own house with you, finding compassion for them and then bringing it to Jesus and realizing that as you do this work, it's an act of worship and honor for both that person and him, things get a whole lot easier. Like as it comes up for you, pay attention to what might be underneath, because that's really the emotion that you want to address. And that's the one that you want to bring into your prayer time. And that's the one that you want to hear Jesus' truth about. My favorite question is to ask him, what do you want me to know about this? So if you discover that anxiety is under that anger or grief is under that anger, you can ask him, Jesus, what do you want me to know about that? What is your truth about this? And he's going to set you free.